Our first speaker is a very interesting personality, that is Jijith Nadumuri Ravi ji. A former rocket scientist with ISRO, he has extensively contributed to Chandrayaan-1 and the GSLV launch designs that are there. But his keen areas of research presently are Rig Veda, Ramayana, and Mahabharata. He specifically focuses on the geography of these Itihasa Purana traditions, and also has a keen interest in the chronology that they present. Presently, he is working as a creative director in one of the largest IT firms in India, and focusing on very futuristic technologies such as digital holograms, virtual reality, and augmented reality. The aim of his research and his keen interest in these futurist technologies is to create a platform which integrates technologies like AI, VR, and AR with the Vedic, Puranic, and Upanishadic knowledge that we have, where he wants to has created a platform called as Dharma Digital, aimed at dharmic revival using digital holograms, where humans can interact with various devatas, where artificial intelligence would be the backdrop of it. The focus of today's session that is going to take roots in his comparative study of Sri Sitaram Goel ji and the pre-Islamic scholarships of Amar Atar Yojamin. By comparative analysis, he eventually developed a theory of Abrahamic origin from the Avestian Zoroastrian thought and its origination in the western neighborhood of the Vedic civilization. Jijith ji would be presenting his paper on SR Goel on the backdrop of the Moplah riots. So I request Jijith ji to please present his views.
So namaste to the panel, and I see a lot of respected members who are I consider as my mentors, like Dr. Conrad and Dr. Talagiri, and of course Shankar Sharan ji. I have like interacted with him in the Indic Academy. And Mark Joris, I have in this conference I am seeing for the first time, and this Pankaj Saxena, he is like a friend in the social media. I see so many other distinguished members as panelists and listeners, including Jackie ji and many members in the India Facts. So my particular talk currently is primarily on Sitaram Goel and on his scholarship, specifically focusing on one particular area where I have not personal but impacted my life as well. That is the Moplah riots. In the sense, 4 generations before, I have experience of people talking about this in their daily life. So this is one area where I thought like I put a like a paper presentation, so that this particular aspect of Moplah riots as a case study of what will happen if you don't focus on Srikant Talagiri, means focus on SRG's scholarship. So just with that introduction, let me start sharing my screen. So my screen is visible?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible. If you can put it in the presentation mode.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So in the first part, what I am going to do is introducing to the Moplah riots and all the political situations that that led to the kind of problem that has erupted in Kerala. And then I will briefly touch upon how it is connected with Sitaram Goel's thesis about Abrahamism, especially the Arabian version of the Abrahamism that we call Islam. And second, I will also try to see some observations like aftermath of this event, what all happened in India, and subsequently the current situation, that is how the people who are focusing on this SRG scholarship, how they are treated in the current post-truth world, as well as some possible solutions I'm talking about. And lastly, there is one particular analysis I have done, tracing the origin of the Abrahamism to Zoroastrianism, basically, and how it is all connected and how this entire idea of monotheism, and especially the Abrahamic variation of the monotheism has emerged, and how it is tormenting the entire human population. So just in the first part, I'm just showcasing the attention of the panel to the events that led to the 1921 Moplah riots. So it was basically a result of a global phenomenon. Everybody is familiar with the Ottoman Empire, and many of the previous panelists mentioned about it. So the Ottoman Empire, like an Islamic state, it has rose in the Southeast Asian, Europe, West Asia, and North Africa. So it happened between 14th and 20th century. So the rise period of it is in, between 1299 and 1453. You can see the map here. So this entire area was part of the Ottoman Empire, Arabia, and then Turkey, part of some of the current Gulf countries, Syria, and Greece, and many of the Southeast European countries, and like the borderline of the Africa. Everything was part of the Ottoman Empire. Its influence was there throughout the Europe and the rest of the world as well. So in 1517, it was declared as the Ottoman Caliphate, and the ruler of the Ottoman Empire was declared as a Khalifa of the Islamic world. It's a title of given to the Islamic global Islam. The ruler of the global Islam we call Khalifa, and it is a kind of title that was originated during the period of the founding stages of the Islam. So that kind of an empire materialized in the form of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. And the Islamic Caliphate slowly eroded because of the rise of the European powers, naval powers, Britain, France, Spain, Portugal, even Dutch also we can include that. So because of the naval power, the European colonization spread across the world. But as a consequence of it, the previous colonizer, that is Ottoman Empire, got declines. And then the World War starts in 1914. And around 1918, this caliphate joined, the current rulers of the caliphate joined the German alliance in the war. And as a result of that, Constantinople, that is the caliphate central capital, that was occupied by the British. That has happened in 1918. So, subsequently, this Ottoman Empire was partitioned between 1918 to 1922. So that is where the event of 1921 happened. I will mention that in the next slide. And the final stage of the end of the Ottoman Empire was 1924. So this was happening globally. And how it affected Kerala, I will tell you in the next slide. So what happened that when this decline was happening, the Ottoman Sultan Abdul Hamid, he has encouraged Pan-Islam, that is bringing entire Islamic community all over the world to fight against this European powers domination over the Ottoman Empire. And as a result, the entire global Islamic countries where there is a considerable presence of Islamic people. So they have all joined and tried to start agitations in their respective countries. And there was one person called Jamal, who had been sent to India in the late 19th century, to fight for the caliphate. And he was active in India. I have searched in the records 2 periods of active propaganda. And that is 1856 to 1859 and 1879. He was very active in India. As a result, there are some leaders emerged, like Maulana Mahmud Deobandi. So he also became active between 1851 to 1920. And then Jamia Millia Islamia, a big cultural as well as educational organization, was founded in 1920. So this is the backdrop of it. So as part of this entire uprising that was happening, there was a lot of religious passion and violent reaction among Indian Muslims. And as part of this violent reaction, the biggest one of them happened in Kerala, that is the Moplah riots. And it was in 20 August 1921 it started. It ran for many years, at least a couple of years it continued. And there are 2 people who are well discussed as the leaders of this riot, that is Warian Kunyi Muhammad Haji and Ali Musliar. So they were the 2 leaders who have been part of this. And they created an Islamic caliphate called Al-Dawla. So there are disputes about it, but more or less this is what happened. The small caliphate originated in the Malappuram district of Kerala, similar to the ISIS. And it was short-lived, but it has created much damage. Many Hindus in Malabar region of Kerala were killed, raped, converted, others fled. Everything has happened. So an estimate of around 10,000 Hindus were killed in the Moplah riots, and because there was a centenary celebration or a centenary remembrance of the Moplah riots in this year, 2021. So many research happened, stock taking happened, and based on that estimate, 10,000 Hindus were killed actually. And Mahatma Gandhi, MK Gandhi, thought that the Islamic sentiments against the British is an advantage, and often endorsed the Islamic leaders into in India who opposed British. So he was thinking that okay, this anyway these Islamic leaders are now against the British, so he can actually cleverly turn them into freedom fighters. So that was the Mahatma Gandhi's idea, and he was started endorsing them, giving stages for their talks, etc. All this happened, so they got strengthened actually. And he tried to bring them into freedom struggle and ignore their Hindu hatred and Hindu murders. So all these things he just brushed aside into the carpet. So later, in the last stages, he did recognize that they have no interest in Indian freedom struggle and were simply opposing the British as part of the global Islamic fight against the British opposition of Ottoman Caliphate. But this was a big error in the of MK Gandhi, and what happened is that it should have been stopped at that. But the independent Indian government gave the status of freedom fighters to the Moplah rioters, and they use all the words, sound bites used by Mahatma Gandhi, praising them as freedom fighters for this purpose. So ultimately, this is what happened. So it's a big distortion of the Indian history. It finally in the since 2021, that is this year. So many leaders from Kerala, they have done deep research and campaigns and propagation in social media about all these facts, and everybody came to aware of the gross distortion. The biggest of them were giving the freedom fighter status to this Moplah rioters. So the ICHR, the Indian Council of Historical Research, noted it, and based on the petitions, they have recommended that these leaders, that is these Moplah riot leaders, Variankun Muhammad Haji and Ali Musliar, and around 387 others, were decreed to be removed from the 5th volume of the Dictionary of Martyrs, Indian Freedom Struggle. So this was one victory, we can say. It has happened. And I profusely thank the three panel committee in the ICHR for their decision. And it has to be at, this is the initial stage of it, but subsequently the dictionary, revised dictionaries has not yet published, is not what I understand, but definitely a positive thing that has happened in all these 100 years. So that is what about just brief understanding about the Moplah riots, but as a kind of trigger event from the global upheaval because of the decline of the Ottoman Empire. It created a ripple effect in the Kerala state. And of course, I also know that a similar kind of incident happened all over India, but the biggest event of destruction happened in Kerala, unfortunately. And so now I am connecting the Moplah riots and SITARAM Goel scholarship, and hoping that it will help us to learn lessons from these episodes. So as far as my understanding, the Islamic destruction of the temples in India, which Goelji has mentioned in his book, then the Moplah riots of 1921, the 1947 partition riots, ISIS occupation of Syria in 2014, Islamic terrorism all over the world, Taliban occupation of Afghanistan, all are interconnected. This is a very truthful and faithful statement, but this particular simple fact, this is like sugar coated in some political incorrect statements, etc. Like there is a general tendency of ignoring these connections, portraying it as isolated incidents or as expressing it something like a sweet lies, but ignoring the bitter truth. So, but the source of all this is Islamic violence. It never stops somewhere in 1947 or anything. It goes straight into the past, where it originated in the 6th and 7th century Arabia. That is one important attention I want to make to the panel. So this is described by SITARAM in his book, Hindu Temples, What Happened to Them, Volume 2. The book is basically describing about Hindu temples, but he has dedicated an entire section for this particular analyzing the theology of the monotheism. So it starts from chapter 9 and it continues into from chapter 10 to chapter 16. This new chapter are dedicated to the Hindu dedicated for this particular purpose. So theology of monotheism, and I request everybody who is listening to this particular talk to go and read these chapters, and they will understand much more than what is discussed in this particular talk that I am giving. So Islam arrived in India and destroyed the temples. That's a absolute fact. Nobody can deny it, and continued for 1,100 years. So around 700 CE to 1,800 CE. And this is again not an isolated incident, because many people think that it's like everything discussed as part of Hindutva, but it's not stop at that. This is a continuity of the destruction of the Zoroastrian worship places in Iran and the pre-Islamic Arabian worship places in Islam's own homeland, that is Arabia. So this destruction is nothing but a continuity of what this monotheism has done in Arabia itself. So they have destroyed their own homeland first, and then they started destroying the neighboring places like Iran and India. So this is just a map of the spread of the Arabian version of the Abrahamism. So again, you can see a red color here, and that is because there is some kind of interference coming from Jerusalem. That is the origin point of Abrahamism. From Jerusalem, there was some colonization happened in the Mecca and Medina. So this is something which is very least discussed in current academia. That is like just like in India, the Arab traders came in India, basically in Kerala, Kozhikode, everywhere Arab traders came, and then Arab trade colonies were established in Calicut, Kozhikode, and all those places in India, Kochi, and near to Travancore, Pallam, everywhere. Similarly, much earlier period, the Jewish traders have come here in Makkah and Medina. So there was a period wherein the Arabs were polytheists, believing in hundreds of gods and goddesses. At that time, this Judaism and Christianity originated in this Israel area. They became monotheist. So the monotheist Judeo-Christian traders came and established in Mecca and Medina. And similarly, there was also some political military activities. Some of the Jewish and Christian kings had some kind of fight, some kind of attacks happening in this area. So this particular chapter of history is very unknown. See, we know that the polytheists in India, the Indians with the polytheism, we were believing. We continue to believe in polytheism and many gods and goddesses, many temples. At that time, the monotheist believers of Christianity and Islam came and colonized us. That we know about it. That is Islamic colonization and Christian colonization in the form of European colonization. But similar thing happened in Arabia. That is not very well known to people. Arabia is similar to India. Arabian people were believing in multiple gods and goddesses, having temples, everything. So it's an exact copy of the 21st century India. It was there in 6th and 7th century Arabia. They were just like Hindus, polytheists, believing multiple gods. And that time, monotheist colonizers came here as exactly like in India, as first as traders and then as some kind of political action. So I will explain in detail about that.
My spiritual journey began with this.
Hello, yeah. So what SRG has, and all this is I'm discussing based on the SRG's theories, his thesis in that same chapters I mentioned. So Islamic theology is the same theology of Abrahamism that is formally expressed in Hebrew and Greek, but re-rendered in Arabic language. So this is what SRG has initially, the first statement he is mentioning about Islamic theology. It is same Abrahamic theology. But earlier it was written in Hebrew and Greek, but when it comes to Arabia, it becomes in Arabic language it is written. So Islam can be also termed as Arabian version of the Abrahamism. So this is the word I use, Arabian Abrahamism, because that is the correct definition of Islam actually. So here Allah, that is the God of this Islam. So it was originally a pre-Islamic Arabian God. So there was, like, for example, Islam originated in 6th and 7th century. So even before that, the god Allah was there, and it was he was a pre-Islamic Arabian god, totally unconnected with the Abrahamism. So this god Allah has no connection with any Abrahamic figures like Adam or Abraham or Isaac or any of that lineage. Totally, that entire lineage, there was no connection. So just like a pre-existing for 3,000, 4,000 years, this god was worshipped in Arabia. So the pre-Islamic Allah was not a jealous god, but a deity connected with other pre-Islamic gods like Hubal god, Al-Usa, Manat, Allah, and so on. And there is another, just because I am connecting the SRD scholarship with another scholar called Amar Atra Yunajim. So he is an expert of pre-Islamic Arabia and its polytheist gods. So he is mentioning, he even gives the name of that religion. So we know currently our religion is called Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma. Similarly, the ancient Arabian religion was known as Din al-Abaika, faith of the forefathers. And it's synonymously, it was also known as Din al-Aliha, faith of the gods. So this was the ancient religion. So currently we have 100 crore Hindus, and Hinduism name is at least well known to the entire world. But think about the ancient Arabs. Their religion name also is not known to the people. Only the academic people who are researchers have any knowledge about these names also. So the Judeo-Christian influenced the pre-Islamic Arabia, and they were living in Makkah and Medina. And they have groomed some Abrahamic missionaries. Just like today in India, so many Hindus, Brahmins were converted, and they will start talking about Hindu concepts itself in the form of Christian theology. So there, I know about a Brahmin converted Christian who will say Purusha Sukta is basically talking about Jesus Christ. So similarly, and Shivaratri they convert into Mishiharatri. Then so many things are they doing. So existing culture. So people they are grooming people from the existing culture. So we know what happened in India through in Hinduism. We know about it, like, because they will create scholars in the Hindu religion who reinterpret everything in Christian terms. So Purusha Sukta is one example of that. Shivaratri as Mishiharatri is another example. Then there is a Velankanni temple. They converted into Velankanni, Amen, like that. So it's like everything they convert into Christian terminology. So similar thing happened in Arabia. So there was a lot of Abrahamic missionaries who can speak in Arabia. They spread in the Abrahamic ideas in the Arabic language. And so it is they who re-rendered Allah into a mold of Jehovah, that is the monotheist Abrahamic God of Judeo-Christians. So Allah's original character was removed and re-rendered as Jehovah. So there is a comparison of pre-Islamic Arabs versus Hindus. Then they will be able to understand it much more clearly. So these pre-Islamic Arabs who believed in Din al-Abaika, that is the name of the religion, they were similar to Hindus as they worshipped many gods and goddesses. They have belief in rebirth. They revered ancestors like Hindus, worship planets and stars, suns, moons, worship nature. Then they have yoga, like something similar to yoga. They have similar kind of epochas. And contrary to popular Hindu belief, the pre-Islamic Arabic, they don't worship any Hindu gods. So see, this is the truth. But this truth is obfuscated by some popular myth, like the Arabs were worshipping in Hindu god. This is not true. And some say Shiva was worshipped there. And then whatever Arabian temples were Hindu temples, Vikramaditya ruled in Arabia. So these are all like fables, but this is the reality. Reality is not known to people, but fable is not to many Hindus actually. So again, this is a table of comparison. So polytheism, say they worship the Hubal, Allah, and Al-Shams, Manat, so many gods, just like Hindus worship Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Ganesha, Ayyappa, Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, like that. Pilgrimage. So Hajj pilgrimage. So here people don't know this is a pre-Islamic Arabian cultural element of the Din al-Abaika religion, but it is absorbed into current Islamic practices. So it is similar to Tirtha Yatra. Just like we have Tirtha Yatra, Shabarimala, visit Tirupati, visit very holy spots, visiting in various places in Indian subcontinent. the Arabs have a Hajj pilgrimage, but currently Hajj pilgrimage is modified into a pilgrimage of all the Muslims can go into Mecca and into the Kaaba. But in the Din al-Abaika tradition, Hajj pilgrimage means all the Arabs in the different parts of the Arabian Peninsula, they are coming into this Makkah. Actually, that is the difference, and they are going to worship their gods there in that particular Kaaba. Actually, but all the Arabian gods anywhere in the Arabian Peninsula had a representation in the Kaaba. So they all go to visit that god, their local god represented in the Kaaba. For that, they are doing the pilgrimage. That is the original Hajj pilgrimage. Then in funeral, there is a janasa, that is, we have Sradha. Then feast, that Ifada, we have Sadhya. And sacrifice, they call it Kurbani, we call it Bali. Then there are temples of Arabian gods and goddesses, just like temples for Hindus. Blessing, there is a barak, there is a concept of barakha, Varadan, something similar to Varadan. That is there in the pre-Islamic Arabian. Fasting is there. So Ramadan also is a pre-Islamic Arabian tradition of the Din al-Abaika, which is transferred into the Abrahamic monotheism of Arabia. So this entire thing is available in this particular website link of Athar Yajunna. So this is another chapter in the SRJ's book. So this Kaaba, that is a city of in the city of Mecca, that is the most important sign of the polytheist Arabs. It's a natural sanctuary. All the regional gods and goddesses of Arabian Peninsula are represented. This is not there is no equivalent of that in India, because we don't have every goddesses all over India represented in any particular place in India. So, but this is happened in the Arabian Peninsula. It was a symbol of Arabian unity, because that is the kind of status given to the Kaaba, because just like in India, so many kings, Arabian kings, fought between each other. So, but this particular Arabian unity symbol united them together. So it is something like a national integration symbol for them. United all the divergent Arabian tribes in Arabian Peninsula. So around total 360 gods and goddesses were represented in Kaaba. And in order to foster religious harmony, like Indian secularism, what happened is the caretaker of the Kaaba, which is a Quraysh tribe, they placed some picture of Jesus and Mary in Kaaba. I mentioned there was some trade colonies of Judeo-Christian people in Mecca and Medina. In order to satisfy them, just like Indian secularism of today, the Quraysh tribe placed the Jesus Mary pictures in the Kaaba. Even though they are foreign gods, they placed them. So Judeo-Christian missionaries, they influenced the polytheist tribes like Quraysh, who were worshipping Jesus, Mary, and Abraham. Like today, Navratri Kolu also, there is an incentive to place Jesus, Mary statues inside Navratri Kolu. So similar kind of influence they have, these Judeo-Christian missionaries had on the Quraysh tribe, the polytheist Quraysh tribe. They put the idols of Jesus, Mary in the Kaaba. So this influence enabled the Arabic Abrahamic missionaries. They claim Kaaba is built by Adam. This is the first major shock. They finally claim that Kaaba is built by Adam and renovated by his son Seth and Abraham. So Adam, Seth, and Abraham are part of the Abrahamic theology of Israel. It's nothing to do with the Arabian polytheism. And they were totally foreign and unknown to the pre-Islamic Arabian civilization, not part of its ancient history or tradition. And what ensued was a complete falsification of the Arabian prehistory. So majority of Meccans till that time have never heard of any Abrahamic names like Abraham, or the story of Arabs descended from Ismail, the eldest son of Abraham. None of them were known to them. But the Arabic-speaking Abrahamic agent accused Meccans of usurping the Kaaba and filling it with polytheist worship. That was the accusation that leveled against the Din al-Abaika religious followers, the pre-Islamic Arabs. They abolished the history of real forefathers of Arabia and linked them to Jewish prehistory. So the entire prehistory of pre-Islamic Arabia completely erased, and it was reconnected to the Judaism and Jewish prehistory. So falsifying of the prehistory is the greatest blow from which pre-Islamic Arabia never recovered. Using the false propaganda, the Arabic-speaking Abrahamic agents destroyed all the gods and goddesses represented in Kaaba, except the painting of Jesus and Mary. And they killed Quraysh tribe members who defended Kaaba, and they killed all the polytheist Arabs. Today, we know none of the archaeological record of the pre-Islamic Arabs contain anything that support the theory that Kaaba is connected to Abraham or Israel. There is nothing in the archaeological records. Instead, they reveal Kaaba was a polytheist worship place since many ages, many thousands of years. That was a polytheist place. So Arabian Abrahamism built on a big lie that the pre-Islamic Arabs were killed and raped and converted on the basis of big Abrahamic lie. And this prehistory falsification is one of the major methodology that the Abrahamic strategy. For example, the Moplah riots were falsified as Indian freedom. Bodhra train burning as if it is done by Hindus themselves. Then St. Thomas visiting India. Now, that is a false history. He has never visited India. He died in somewhere in Afghanistan somewhere. And falsification of Indian history, so that the destruction of Hindu temples that continued for 1100 years from 700 CE to 1800 CE. It is concealed and not taught in schools or colleges. Falsification of true motive of temple destruction. So they say the actual reason is religious hatred of polytheism. They call it kafirs or heathens. But they are replacing it with false protection, like need to loot temple wealth. Temple wealth looting happened, but it is a corollary side effect. Actually, they destroyed it because they hate kafir. That is the reason. Then promotion of Abrahamic appeasements and suppression of Sanatana Dharma using Indian secularism. That section has discussed this in detail. And then falsification of true motive of creation of Pakistan. See, it is basically following the principles of like Abrahamic monotheist principle, that you divide the entire nation into two parts. Wherever there is this strength, that is called Dar al-Islam. So Pakistan is the land of believers of Arabian Abrahamism, and the rest of the land is described as Dar al-Harb. That India is the land of polytheist kafirs. So kafir land is just separated out from the Islamic land, and in the future they will claim the other land also by increasing their presence. So this is what actually happened in the creation of Pakistan. But this aspect is completely ignored and covered under wraps. People only talk about political and situation, etc. But this is basically a division exactly well defined in the this religious books of the Arabian Abrahamism. So true history of pre-Islamic Arabs. So actually, I told about the false history. The true history I'm talking about. There is a king called Manium, that is as early as 3000 BC, similar to during our Rigvedic period. And then wood, stone, and metals imported from Arabia to Syria in around 2550 BC. There are archaeological records for it. And then Sabian civilization flourished in Arabia from 800 BC to till the point the Arabian Abrahamism destroyed it in 6th and 7th century. Sabian worship the sun, moon, planets, natural gods, build massive temples and with gods and goddesses with silver and gold, believed in rebirth and yuga-like epochs. Archaeology has records of the temple sculptures, palaces, city walls, towers, public works, irrigation infrastructure. And they have, it is very, from archaeology, it is very clear, they have absolutely zero knowledge about Adam, Ismail, or Abraham. The Arabian kingdoms exported frankincense, myrrh, and cassia. All these trade goods they have exported. And they were brave soldiers, tailors, and traders and sailors. And of course, in Kerala also, before the Islam came to Arabia, in Kerala, the pre-Islamic Arabians were trading actually. So this is well known to the kings of Kerala actually. You can get in the archaeological records of the old kings of Kerala. So their trade colonies existed in India and other countries. Yes, in Kerala there was there. I mean, before 6th and 7th century, before they become Muslims, they were there. And what the Arabian Abrahamists, if you look at this is what SITARAM and Goel said. This is what the Abrahamic text described the pre-Islamic Arabs. They were unrepentant pagans and polytheists, unaware of monotheist God and his prophets. They attached partners to Allah. They gave daughters to Allah while they preferred sons themselves. They worshipped stones and statues. They had no prophet. They had no scriptures. These are all the complaint against the pre-Islamic Arabs. They were ignorant of the last day and of the heaven and hell. They reveled in blood feuds, buried alive their female infants. Sons married stepmothers. Same men will marry two men, two or more uterine sisters. These are all the charges leveled against the pre-Islamic Arabs, so that they can destroy them and nobody will raise a question. And the same kind of vilification, I would say, similar kind of vilification is done for the Sanatana Dharma. where our festivals are vilified. So vilification is the first step before destruction. So today you are vilified, the Dasara, Diwali, everything is vilified. The Karwa Chauth is called oppression. Then Diwali, they called it's a Aryan invasion theory, like Rama destroyed Dravidian Ravana, like that. Or similar kind of. And for Dasara, the goddess is a prostitute, like that they will say. And so many other. So this vilification is the first step. Same thing happened in pre-Islamic Arabia. So this kind of information was spread against them. This vilification campaign was first happened, and then only subsequently they were destroyed. So we have to be very cautious that we are going to the same phase where first the tradition is vilified, and within 2-3 decades they will start destruction after this. So after vilification means then all over the world Hindus are considered as fascist and like that. So when destruction happened, when everything is destroyed, the rest of the world will think that okay, they deserve it. Now same thing happened in the pre-Islamic Arabia to the pre-Islamic Arabs who were polytheists. So I'm just telling you that this is the correlation of what will be happening in our side. So how it is spread. So Arabian Abrahamism after creation in Arabia, after destroying gods and goddesses of Kaaba, and the Arabian Abrahamists destroyed the temples of Arabian gods and goddesses in Arabian Peninsula. That within Arabia itself, they started destruction. Alusa, Ubal, Alat, Manat, Wat, all the temples related to these goddesses and gods, they were destroyed first. So then the ancient people, the pre-Islamic Arab people, they cried when their gods and goddesses were destroyed. Some of them resisted. There were some battles. They fought back, but their men were killed and women raped, children smashed to ground. Others were converted. So this happened actually. It's the same thing what happened in the Islamic period in India. And the wealth of those who are killed were distributed to the soldiers of Arabic Abrahamism. So women were distributed as sex slaves. So because of this, again, it became an incentive. More people joined, freely enjoy wealth and women. And it was a self-sustaining industry kind of it grew. So similar thing was attempted in 2014 in ISIS. So because of the greed of getting free women as sex slaves, there are so many European people also, European citizens have come and joined into the ISIS in 2014. This happened. So this is a real thing. So ISIS is just an example of what happened in Arabia in 6th and 7th centuries. And there were Kilba from the Temple of Jerusalem. After the establishing themselves by deriving entire ideology from the Judaism and Christianity, they turned against them. That is the last thing. So the Temple of Jerusalem was shifted. Kilba from the Temple of Jerusalem was shifted to Kaaba of Mecca. And then Arabian nationalism started. Arabian nationalism centered around Arabian Abrahamism. So then Arabs will also become very proud of themselves, because see, whatever status of Temple of Jerusalem, that is now come to their own local region in Kaaba in Mecca. So then no longer anybody, even though some of them were killed, some of their ancestors were killed because they were all pre-Islamic Arabs worshipping polytheist gods and goddesses. But now they also got some prestige. Okay, they forget all the previous humiliation and destruction of their own fathers and mothers. They just become very happy about the Kaaba of Mecca getting importance and the Temple of Jerusalem demoted. So Arabian nationalism started. So there was no go back after that, because all the Arab nations become very proud of the Arabian Abrahamism after the Judaism and Christianity was demoted in their eyes. So even though the Arabian Abrahamism planted by Judeo-Christian missionaries, they were eventually given a second-class status. Many of them were killed or converted by Arabian monotheists. And the Arabian Abrahamism spread to Iran. Some same pattern repeated in Iran. And this is something that shows the resilience of Indian tradition, because within 10-20 years, the entire Iran was converted. And a few people Zoroastrian fled to Iran. Fled from Iran to India and got asylum in Gujarat as Parsi. And Ratan Tata is one of them. And the Arabian Abrahamism finally reached India, destroyed its temple for 1,100 years, finally created Pakistan and many pockets of Darul Islam in Malabar, Kerala, Kashmir, Bengal. That is what the current situation actually. So current situation, So some kind of a positive developments. See, Darul Islam, the status of Kashmir as a Darul Islam, it is now abrogated, and Kashmir is now a normal state in India. I missed the Ayodhya also. The Ayodhya also very significant because this is the first one of the first instances where one of the Abrahamic destroyed one temple of polytheists. Again, it got re-established. But anyway, the temple is continuously being constructed. But once it is constructed, this will be also another achievement. Just like Kashmir converted into a normal state of India instead of becoming an Islamic state. The Ayodhya, we were able to re-establish Ayodhya. This is one of the first incident where it is happened. Of course, Somnath temple also it has happened, but one of the major, because Ram and Krishna are two important tallest icons of Sanatana Dharma, and the largest temple of Ram is Ayodhya, and it is re-established. Is again another minor, you can say major victory. And the price of adopting this dangerous ideology that originated by falsifying the pre-Islamic history of Arabia has caused terrible loss of human life, perhaps the largest in the recorded human history in the entire world. And today it has impacted Arabia, that is its own homeland Arabia, and Gulf countries, then India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Israel, Egypt, many African and Central Asian and Southeast Asian countries. Earlier, Southeast Asia was considered as a symbol of syncretic Islam, but even there also violence have started now, and they are slowly changing their characteristics and becoming like the Pakistan, like a kind of culture. Earlier, they were very proud of the Hindu tradition, Southeast Asian countries, but slowly they are changing in there. So this is a very kind of a painful or maybe a situation which requires attention, and it has started affecting Europe, Americas, Oceania, and other countries. So no country is safe. Europe also a lot of problems started recently. There was a big incident happened in UK now, that is Ramesh Rao was mentioned, and monotheism is a claim of monopoly and supremacy. So if you look at the core ideology, it is monopoly and supremacy only. And it can never bring peace. Even though it talks about God, God is just a pretext. It's basically a monopoly and supremacy, political monopoly and political supremacy, and can never bring peace. Even if the entire world become monotheist, assume that we agree to the wishes of the Abrahamic monotheists, like everybody convert to their ideology. Will there be peace? No, because even if the entire world become monotheist, there will be still fight of dominance, because the same monotheist religion divided into thousands of sects like Shia, Sunni, and then fight for dominance until 7 billion humans will die. Because Pakistan is exactly this example. The entire country is Islamic, but still there is a fight. And in Taliban, now in Afghanistan, Taliban has conquered the entire Afghanistan. Are they bringing any peace? Because there is infighting still going on. So this is really, it's never going to get into any peaceful situation, even if the entire world get converted. And now I go to the different topic. That is this entire thing. What I am able to tell is only because of SITARAM Goel. So 90% of my thesis on this particular topic came from SITARAM Goel, 10% from Yajunam, like that. So what is happening today? This is with a lot of pain I am telling you, because similar to the isolation of SITARAM Goel, like SITARAM Goel in his life died as a sad man, because he was completely isolated, and there was no good support from his organization, and he was isolated, and the same isolation is faced by those who try to spread Islamic scholarship. So one living example is Dr. Conrad and Dr. Stalagiri, because the contribution else has done in portraying the true perspective of Ayodhya is often ignored by nationalist Hindus. I myself was part of some debates, email debates which run into 100 and 200 email conversations, counter conversations. I was a part of that kind of debate, where his contribution to Ayodhya is completely ignored, and he was being discussed as a anti-Hindu, etc. And I could not tolerate it, and I was reacting very strongly to that. So many things happened. Same thing happened due to the support of true history of Bharata, despite its brilliant expertise in Indology, Dr. Elst is sidelined by international research arena dominated by Pollock and Whitson. So just giving a tag of supporting Hindus is enough for the scholars to be demoted in their respective circles. So this has happened to Dr. Els, and Talagiri is having a brilliant OIT thesis, that is Indian origin, Proto-Indo-European, and Indo-European migration from Indian subcontinent to Europe. And but due to support to SRG, so even today also you can hear his words. He was very much critical of the current political party, ruling political party, but it is not again because of hatred. It is basically because he is frustrated that they are having certain mandate and they are not fulfilling it. So people are mistaking the harsh words and brutal criticism as a kind of enmity and opposition. But it basically this is basically because of sincerity that it is happening, that people should understand. And everybody, both of these leaders, they want the organization, current the Hindu leadership organization, cultural as well as political, to be excelling in their mandate and their objectives. But since it is not happening, they are criticizing. But they are instead because of that they are isolated. They are facing isolations in various arenas. They are isolated for their words, which are coming out of experience. It's coming. So this has to be stopped. That's what I will say. I have my own share of isolation, because in my apartment circles and friend circles, because in the last 3 years, since I made a lot of true statements based on SITARAM Goel scholarship, I no longer have that friend circles or any apartment circles. I will not be invited in any of the celebrations, even Dasara's Diwali celebrations. I was not invited for that, because I was telling the true perspective on every aspect, whether it is about this violences happening in India, or any of these leaders, or any of these Islamic leaders like Tipu Sultan or anybody. I tell the correct perspective, and these people are not interested in supporting and try to isolate people like anybody telling the truth. That is the current situation, and this kind of situation can be corrected only when there is a central leadership takes some changes in the policy and correct the history textbooks. So as long as in the history textbooks the counter narratives are taught, they will think that people like Talagiri or Condadals or myself, whatever we are telling, they are falsehood. That is what they think. They are genuinely thinking that this is falsehood, and this is all trying to get votes for BJP. That's what they are saying. It's all for getting votes for BJP, that we are all telling all these things. That's what the simple kind of a belief. We are all IT cell. Somebody says that I was part of the IT cell of BJP, and like that. That is what they are thinking. But we cannot help it, because this is what even the television media channels and the newspapers and even the central leadership currently ruling, they are also now trying to correct it. Similarly, and again I say that this is also part of a general tendency among the Hindus, nationalist Hindus, because they don't want to hear anything contrary to the popular belief. So, for example, just like SITARAM Goel scholarship, I also tell about the truth about the Kurukshetra war date, which should be below 2000 BC. The moment I say this, they will start isolating me. And similarly, history and geography in the Vedas. It is anybody who is familiar with the Rigveda Samhita, they can very clearly understand it talks about the lineage of kings and also geography in that. But the general people have beliefs that it's only about the philosophy and spirituality in the Rigveda. So whenever they hear it, they think that this person is trying to brainwash people. This is what they think. And Mahabharata war also, the people interested in having the glory of Bharatavarsha, they think that 5561 BC will be like increasing the glory of Bharatavarsha. So this is a general tendency. It's not only restricted to this SITARAM Goel. Anything contrary to the popular belief, the people are not interested in looking at. They immediately right away reject it without any kind of checks. So I'm not talking about only about problems. I'm just putting up something for the solution part of it. So scholarship of SITARAM Goel, which traces the birth and growth of Arabian Abrahamism, it can really save the world. Now I'm not talking about just India. It will save the world in Arab countries to make the course correction. The scholarship, this Adar Yajunnam is very unknown. So his scholarship of Yajunam, if he's Arab, I think he's an Arab living in UK. So he can help the Arab countries to make course correction and rediscover their lost goddesses and gods. And conferences like this, highlighting the scholarship of SRG, is a right step towards recognizing bitter truths. I call it bitter truths because people don't like bitter truths, and they discarding sweet lies. Sweet lies is what people like. Anything which is a popular imagination, which is well known, which is popular, that they like, even if it is a lie. And hence all the organizers of this conference deserve great appreciation, and I sincerely appreciate them for this conference. And then I request the RSS, my humble request, if anybody in RSS is listening to this conversation and this conference, the RSS can adopt the SRG scholarship as a core. It has to be the core ideology, core directive, and all the policies should derive from this RSS, this SITARAM Goel Jesus scholarship. RSS is the only organization that can do it. And I don't consider, I have never used any word of RSS as non-intelligent, because there is some kind of inertia. Definitely there is an inertia, I will tell that. It has happened, but currently, see, anyway, 70 years it was dominated by Congress, etc. So you need to play smart, maybe you can say you need to play smart. If you too much of you expose the reality, they will again aggressively destroy you. All these things were correct. But now after 2014, that situation is not there. So you have full power. Now you don't have to play coward, play something like, no, you don't have to, you can shun the earlier reservations, and then you can aggressively have established scholarship at the core of your ideology. This is one humble request I have to RSS organization. And similarly, another defect I see is the Hindu nationalist leaders, both the cultural organization and the political leadership, should avoid the MK Gandhi's Abrahamic appeasement politics. I'm a very strong critic of MK Gandhi, but I also see the positive, a lot of positive things on him. So currently, my idea is that only criticize for those aspects which require criticism. So whatever positive things are in MK Gandhi, I appreciate that, but at the same time, he is started the Abrahamic appeasement politics in India, starting with the Moplah riots, and the way he had treated this Moplah rioters as freedom fighters and tried to give stages to them and promoted them. So that is the beginning of the Abrahamic appeasement politics in India. That the ideology of MK Gandhi, maybe he sincerely believed that by this way we can convert them into real freedom fighters. But whether sincerely or tactfully he tried that, that same thing as adopted by the leftist organization of India and the Congress Party, and also the currently BJP. So all the three, that is communist leftist parties, Congress as well as the currently BJP, everything actually originated from Mahatma Gandhi, who has established this Abrahamic appeasement politics in 1921 onwards, starting with the Moplah riots. So this should be avoided. You have to do course correction. So just like the pre-Islamic Arabian nations are doing course corrections, we also have course corrections to be done on these two aspects, like adopting SRG scholarship in the core of RSS, as well as staying away from the Gandhian Abrahamic appeasement politics. And this is another thing I observed is like, even if you see, you don't have to hate Abrahamism or Abrahamic people. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend any kind of attacks and fights, etc. I don't recommend that. But if you sincerely believe, if you have friends across the Abrahamic people, if you want to really save them, and you are telling sweet lies, it will not save them. Instead, it will make them continue in their wrong paths. So that way, you may be in good books of these people, but ultimately you are destroying them. So if you are really sincere in your friendship, you are sincere in bringing them to the right path, you have to tell them the bitter truth and avoid telling the sweet lie, saying that praising Abrahamism like as if something is equal to Sanatana Dharma. Many of the people say Sarva Dharma Samabhava. They think that similar to Sanatana Dharma, Abrahamism also is a valid path to the God or to the Dharma. It is totally false. It's entire Abrahamism is built upon political domination and monopoly. There is nothing God inside that, and God is just a pretext, just like to to convince people that it is a religion and it is something to do with God, but there is nothing in that. And you make them realize this early as a good friend. As they are good friends, you realize them that this is what is happening. And after that, if they continue, let them do it. But you have to do this. And instead of continuing telling the lie again and again, and that same DNA, that kind of remarks, etc., is like that. That will not help actually. Because today they may be praising you because you are siding with them. But after some time, when they realize the truth that their religion is false, then at that time they will accuse you. Why didn't you tell me? So you have to do that. And this will also help the Bharata. So 130 crore people. Jewish are just 5% or 1% of our strength. So look at how they have reconfigured as a great nation and a dominant power. We are 130 crore people with sorry, 10 is more. Just ignore it. So 9,500 years, like starting with Birana, 7,500 years. Birana I consider as the oldest record of Indian civilization. So 7,500 till date, we have such a big civilization, and we are responsible to make it continue. So all these if you implement this solution, it will help save Bharata with a 130 crore population and having 9,500. Just ignore this last zero. I am very sorry about it. So 9,500 and starting with Birana, that civilization will be destroyed if you are not doing it. I'm 100% sure about it. It's not like it's not coming like a meteor impact and destruction not happening in 10 minutes or 1 year. So it doesn't mean that it is not destruction. As we speak, every day, every hour, it is slowly destroying. It's a slow destruction so that you are not noticing it. Unless you make course correction within 2050 to 2100, we will disappear. Our civilization will disappear from the planet Earth, just like the Zoroastrians. We will all disappear and will be part of the museum. Can I ask if there is any time left?
Yes, sir. Like 5 minutes, we can spare 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. So in 5 minutes enough for me. This much as I have about the SITARAM Goelji's scholarship, and I have on my own way. I have expanded on the two scholarship of Yejunnam as well as SITARAM Goel. So for 5 minutes, I will explain that. So there is my website on Avestan text Vendidat Vesperad S9 yes. That is in takshashila.wiki.com. I have created a wiki for Wikipedia like wiki for the Vendidat Vesperad S9 and yes the site. So in that a lot of observations like Mary Boyce who are studying the Zoroastrian culture and religion. Zoroaster was the first to teach the doctrine of individual judgment, heaven and hell, the future of resurrection, and last judgment. So all these Abrahamic principles you can find in Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism is the oldest, and it is older than Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So it is the source of Abrahamism. Zoroastrianism is the oldest world religion. And I have also studied the Zoroastrian and Israel interaction. So Zoroastrian Persian occupation of Israel is there. Like Cyrus II was a king. It's around 520 BC. So Cyrus, the kings like Cyrus and some earlier to him, they have conquered the territories up to Egypt, and Israel was part of it. So there is a link of Zoroastrian to Abrahamism. So it's not just words, but actually it was there, and it is well studied. And Zoroastrianism evolved from Avestan religion and coexisted with the Rigvedic tradition. So you can read a scholarship of Srikant Talagiri to understand that. So my addition is this hatred to Devatas. So in the Avestan text, how it is starting is Indra is the god that Rigvedic people invoke when they attack, they fight with the Avestan people, the enemies. That is the Trishtu Bharatas when they fight against the others. The Abhivartin Chayamana and Abhivartin was a friend, but Kavi Chayamana and such Avestan kings, they will invoke Indra. And in every battle, whenever they get victory, like the big battle of the Dasarajana battle, the victory is dedicated to Indra. And naturally, the Avestans have developed an enmity with Indra. and they slowly started hating anything related to Indra. Anybody worshipping Indra, definitely the Vedic people, they hated. So based on hatred, a religion was emerged in the west of Rigvedic river Paryushni. And some of the resurrection is mentioned. Mary Boy is mentioned. Resurrection is there in the last in the Zoroastrian text. But I say resurrection is there in the Mayadanava. Mayadanava by definition is an Ahura or Asura, right? Daityas and Danavas are both Asuras. So Mayadanava resurrected the dead Asuras. So definitely resurrection is part of the. We see the glimpse of it in the Mayadanava's story. And Shukracharya is having Vrata Sanjeevani, where he resurrected the dead bodies. So resurrection as a rudimentary concept emerged in this area to the west of Paryushni, where all the Daityadanavas or the Asuras, which is Zoroastrian called Ahura, they existed. And the one and only one God syndrome. So Abrahamism, if you look at, notice the biggest problem is the one and only one God. There is only one God, and you have to obey that God. That same God say, I am jealous of other gods. All these things are there. It is a central tenet of Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Everywhere this one and only one God, very powerful and jealous of other gods is there. So similar kind of God was the Hiranyakashipu. If you remember, the Hiranyakashipu declared himself as a god, and he prevented anybody worshipping any other god like Vishnu or anybody, and he will kill them. He will destroy. Even his own son Prahlada, when worshipped this Vishnu, he ordered to kill him, and Prahlada was thrown into fire. So all these things are only happening in the Abrahamic theology. Like anybody who question the monotheist God, Abrahamic God, they will put into the fire. So again, I searched a little more deeper, and I have looked at it, because some people say there is a Egyptian monotheism, Akhenaten, etc. So during the 2nd millennium BC, Israel was the seat of Canaan polytheism. So Canaan is here, just Arabia is here, like that Canaan is there. So they were polytheist. So just like the Arab have a polytheist past, earlier even Israel also was a polytheist tradition. So nowhere the monotheism was nowhere there in the world. So Canaans were there in 2nd millennium BC, and slowly the Canaan identity was melted into Israel identity. At that time, the Egyptian kings around this period, 15th century, 15th and between this period, they have conquered this Canaan, Israel at that period here. So Israel dominated this, and that time there is an Egyptian monotheism, Athenism, worship of the sun god Akhenaten. So it is dated to 1400 BC. So this is I have explored it because it's counter to my theory about origin of Abrahamism in Zoroastrianism. So I looked at it. So Egyptian monotheism has some influence on Canaan. Maybe it may be having it, but when I looked at it, primarily Athens is a sun god worship, is just worship of the sun god, and other gods and goddesses were there, still there. And it was in my opinion, it's an overhyped earliest monotheism. It's a hyped up, because the monotheists want some ancientness to the monotheist ideology. Because of that, they are just trying to hype it up like a big monotheism. And both the impact and the duration of Akhenaten monotheism is not clearly known. So I am not denying it. There is definitely a kind of monotheist influence, but it may be a 5%, 1% influence on the Israelites from the Egyptian Akhenaten monotheism. But here, if you look at the Babylonia and the Persian dominates Israel. See, 586 BC, the Babylon has conquered Yehudia. And Hebrew Bible says he destroyed the Solomon temple and exiled the Jews to Babylon. But 538 Cyrus, that is Persian emperor Kuru, conquered the Babylon, and he freed the Jews under the Babylonian occupation. And 436 BC, Jews from Babylon returned to Yehudia and rebuilt the Solomon temple. So Babylon and Persian culture thus severely influenced the developing Abrahamic Judaism. So this is much more closer to the origin point of Abrahamic Judaism. So I see that the largest connection of origin of Abrahamism should be with the Zoroastrians. And this is how the Daitya Hiranyakashipu consciousness entered Abrahamism to abstain Zoroastrian religion. Okay, so just 2 slides. The possible bright future, because I don't want to be in end the talk in a negative mode. So see, SRT scholarship has a potential to fix the demographic problem of India, Bangladesh, and it can help Arab countries to reconnect the lost gods and goddesses of Islamic Arabia. And UAE has taken some steps like building Hindu temples in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Saudi has introduced Mahabharata Ramayana in school syllabus. Some of them, it's not officially everywhere. Yoga and Ayurveda already there in the Arab countries. And polytheism will enable Arab world to become tolerant of the other diverse cultures. No doubt about polytheism being tolerant, monotheism being intolerant. And this will help Arab world to become multicultural again, like they were before 6th century. It will attract more talent into Arab world, like how in Europe and America is able to attract multicultural talent from India and other countries. And this is more important. The post-petroleum era, they are going to decline. And if they want to survive, they cannot afford to have these modern monotheist hardcore ideas, strict Islamist ideas. It will repel multicultural talent from across the globe. And if you adhere to the polytheism, they will it will correct a huge error they made in 6th century, which pushed them into the violent and nihilistic path of nihilistic path of violence, and it will turn them into a society contributing to the progress and stability of the world. And this is just a formula of constructing the monotheist religion. Not many people have talked about it. That's why I'm mentioning. The formula is like this: you select one male polytheist god from the existing Abrahamic to play as the Abrahamic monotheist god. So first step is select one polytheist, pick one polytheist god to play as the Abrahamic monotheist god. So Jehovah is selected from Canaanite polytheism, so for Judaism and Christianity. Allah is selected from the Arabian polytheism. And after that, you reject every other gods and goddesses. It's very simple. So they reject Jehovah's wife Asherah and Canaanite gods like Astorath, Baal, etc. So that way Judaism is created. And Christianity is copied from Judaism. And in Arabia, rejection of all the gods and goddesses of the Arabian polytheism, Al-Sa, Hubal, Manat, Wat, everyone will reject. So only one will remain. That is the monotheism. So destruction of the polytheist history, and the second step is you destroy the all the older history, so that nobody will know about it. But it will not. It is not successful because archaeological records are there. So first, but whatever written history you destroy. Then violence based on forceful conversion, violent reaction, shutting off free speech, suppressing the truth, controlling the free and unbiased social dissemination of information and truth. That is social media control, newspaper control, television control, movie industry control, everything. And controlling politics and power. Whoever is in the politics, you control them. Congress, they have control. Now BJP controlling they have started controlling BJP also. So attempts were made to carve Hindu Abrahamic monotheism in 20th century, I noticed it. So just imagine, Shiva is turned into an Abrahamic monotheist god by rejecting Vishnu, Durga, Ganesha, and Muruga. And it really happened. I mean, it's just about to happen, but somehow by grace of Shiva, it has not stopped. The Abrahamic influence of Shiva worshippers like in Lingayat, they were trying to carve Shiva into a monotheist god. Then Krishna turning into Abrahamic monotheist god, rejecting Shiva and Durga. All the people who are worshipping Shiva and Durga are killed. Their temple destroyed. Now imagine that a scenario. So even though it didn't happen because of by the grace of Krishna, it didn't happen. See, Abrahamic influence on Krishna worship in ISKCON, a lot of complaints happened. Like they tried to modify the Bhagavad Gita into Abrahamic statements like that. They a lot of tried. They like portraying Krishna as a monotheist god. They tried a lot of things like that. Sikhism is currently under influence, and it's going to start more in the coming months. Khalistani movement. This is basically converting Sikh philosophy into Abrahamic ideology already started during British period. It is intensified last month also. So many incidents happened. And in Hinduism, the entire Hinduism also this has happened. So Arya Samaj again, as I appreciate all the positive things Arya Samaj has done, but one negative, just like I talk about Mahatma Gandhi, they have tried to Abrahamize Hinduism by they saying that only the Rig Veda is correct, everything Mahabharata, Ramayana, everything is wrong. So that is that kind of Abrahamism trying to enter into Hinduism happening almost 300 years. It is happening. It's a reality. But because of the grace of Krishna and Shiva, it is not successful. So that's my talk, and I recommend these two different scholarship on the left hand side. SITARAM, Goel, Hindu temples, what happened to them, the volume 2. The entire topic of the book is about Hindu temple destruction, but chapter 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 will give a very solid foundation about pre-Islamic Arabia. Same thing, and this is the link for that. Voice of Dharma is again the foundation, the great supporter of the SITARAM scholarship. I appreciate my full appreciation. Then Amar Atar Yajunnam, again great scholar. I don't see him writing any books so far, but this is the website vatanism.blogspot.com. He has written 2-3 articles, and that is good enough, equivalent to the same chapters of. This many chapters, so same amount of solid scholarship. 3 blogs: mythology and religion of pre-Islamic Arabia, deities, spirit, figures, and locations; social context and spiritual belief in pagan Arabia; rituals and practices in pagan Arabia. These 3 big blogs. Almost he should write a book on that. That much big scholarship also will give you a foundation on the pre-Islamic Arabian gods and goddesses. You will know that it is exactly like Hinduism, but never get into the confusion that it was actually Hindu. That is again wrong. There was no Shiva temple in Arabia. I can tell that. But they had similar kind of gods and goddesses, and their temples were there. So those things you will get to know from here. Full, very detailed, all the gods, 360 gods of Arabia is discussed here. All the practices like Hajj and Janasa, similar to the pilgrimage, Tirtha Yatra, etc. of Hindus, everything is discussed in this. So these 2 scholarship, just after this talk, you spend at least half a day in going through these 2 scholarship. Anybody who has not already gone, my humble request. Thank you.
Thank you, Jijith. I think Mark Yoris, sir, has something to say. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Sir, I was very disappointed, not with the historical overview you gave. This was very good. Yeah. You know many things about Islam, but you don't name the enemy by the name. You use the name Arabic Abrahamism, and you present it as if Islam, or it's about that, it's about Islam, is an Arabic translation of Abrahamism. This is plain wrong. This is what the Muslims say about themselves. They try to accaparate it. This is plain wrong. This is as saying Donald Duck is a real duck or Mickey Mouse is a real mouse. If tomorrow in the United States a serial killer stands up and he sucks the blood of his victims and with his tongue dripping from blood says, I'm an incarnation of Kali, would you then say, oh, well, a Hindu, look at that. This is what Islam did. All stories about Abrahamism from the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament, as the Christians call it, that Muhammad retells are plain wrong. The names are wrong. The genealogy, who is the son of whom, who is the daughter of whom, this is wrong. He has not understood a shred of Judaism, of real Abrahamism. He could not read or write. How could he have understood? Even the story of Abraham sacrificing Isaac, which could be a powerful argument against Abrahamism, well, not sacrificing, asking to sacrifice, is so distorted that it means the complete opposite. In the real Abrahamism, in Judaism, the story means cut to the bone. 2 things. God says, I am against human sacrifice. Everyone does it around you, but please stop. I do not want it. Now you see what it is. This is your beloved son, your only son. I gave you by miracle. So this is the feeling you have if you have to bring a human sacrifice. Stop it. Slaughter a goat in place of it, which is a step forward in civilization. What make the Muslims of this story? You know, each year, the Hajj, there is a moment in which they threw stones at a rock, at a big rock lying there, and this rock represents a devil. And what has this devil done? He has whispered in Abraham's ear so that Abraham hesitated. He thought God had ordered him to slaughter his son, and he hesitated. Of course, he was a human being. He had human feelings. He had doubts about this because this was contrary to the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. And the devil made him hesitate. And the Muslims lapidate, throw stones at this devil. If their view of the problem is, if God orders you to kill your son, well, you may not hesitate, you may not think, you may set aside all moral rules, all feelings, and you stab him. And if you hesitate, this is the devil that makes you hesitate. This, how you can say both, is about Abraham, but his stories are completely distorted. There, on this one point, you buy the lies of Muhammad, the lies of Islam, Christianism and Judaism, with all their mistakes and all the bad things they have done, they are completely different. They have had a completely different evolution from Islam. If you doubted it, ask yourself why values as democracy and human rights and tolerance have, in the end, after too many centuries, I admit that, have flourished in Christian lands and in Israel, the only democracy in the whole of the Arab world, and that all Muslim states are dictatorships. This derives from the lies of Muhammad, who tried to accaparate Judaism, Abrahamism, to say, I am the only real Jew. And in the beginning, I know the stories too. In the beginning, Jews listened to him. They thought, oh, well, maybe. Till he began telling Abraham this, and his granddaughter, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Oh, granddaughter. There he proved he had no idea of the centuries that are passed by between Abraham and Mary, the mother of Jesus. He had no idea of all. He was plainly probably retelling some stories he had here around the campfire. And then you say, oh, this is real Abrahamism. Why has he changed the Qibla? In the beginning, indeed, he tried, like a good politician, a good madman, or a good demagogue too. He tries to say, I'm with you, I'm a Jew like you. And you see, I pray towards Jerusalem. But when they said, my boy, you don't know anything of Judaism, you don't know anything of our laws, of our scriptures, you're an imposter. Then he was angry and he changed the Qibla. And he killed all Jews in Medina. You forgot this detail, but these people were the true Abrahamic descendants of the true Abrahamic religion, and he murdered them all. And then you say, but that's all the same. Your course, you made me angry, you know. I'm not angry if people say, I do not believe in God, in Christianity, in Jesus. And I'm a Hindu or something else. This is perfectly normal. I think all religious people should have a certain doubt. We believe, we feel something is true, but we do not really know. Sometimes in sleepless nights, which I have often, I wonder if, imagine the Hindus are right, or the Buddhists are right, and I am wrong. I don't think so, but this is possible. There are no proofs in religion. There is an intimate feeling of this feels true for me. But for the other people in this panel, other things feel as true. And as long as they respect me, I can respect them. No, never one Hindu has tried to kill me or has sent me a bullet. Muslims have done. But you seem to be what you dislike in monotheism. You have this yourself. You're a fundamental, excuse me for saying it, but you're a fundamentalist, not even of Hinduism, but of polytheism. I hope in the next incarnation, it's not possible, incarnations don't go to the past, but you should be born as an Indian in a Mexican tribe bordering the Aztec empires. So you could be sacrificed by the polytheists as Aztecs. Your view is so narrow, all evil comes from monotheism. And all good comes from polytheism. This is a typical Muslim simplifications of historical facts that are much more complex and completely different. You can't, you in India, we had a large discussion about how the incapability of the Hindu majority to get rid of the Muslim minority, and the problems and the fractions and the infighting. And you will even make it worse. You can't put down the Muslim minority in India and, oh, well, go to the attack against Christians that many of them want to be your allies, against the Jews that on the geopolitical level are good allies against Islam, against the whole rest of the world. This is a suicidal thing. You make enemies where you have enemies enough, and you make enemies where they are not. You scoff at potential allies because you say, you're a monotheist and all monotheists are like the Muslims, so you are as bad as them. This is not honest. This is not tolerant, and this is for yourself. This is suicidal public relations. Don't put decent people in the same murderous black bloody sack as the Muslims. This is not decent. I do not deserve that. Who else does not deserve that? Many well-meaning Christians do not deserve to being put on par to be considered as proto-Muslims. This is destructive. Thank you.
Can I respond?
Gigi, you can, but again, we have to be brief. I know the debate can go. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a few words. See, this assessment of Abrahamism is primarily a reporting of the words of SITARAM Goel. Second is, I don't have any kind of negative attitude towards Christians or even Muslims who are living in the current period, because they are victims of whatever happened in the past. I myself have traveled into UK, London, and then Edinburgh. I have visited US, two cities, New York and Seattle. Never I have faced any kind of discrimination or kind of hatred. So the Christian world, whatever currently we have, it is. I can say it is far better than the Arabic world, this Arabian world, or the Gulf countries. Maybe Dubai or some other metropolitan cities is an exception. But nobody will be interested in going to any hardcore Islamic nations, which is even currently, even despite all the modifications, despite all the modern changes, Saudi Arabia, etc. Nobody is interested. Like, for example, if I'm asked for some projects, do you want to go to have as part of the project? Do you want to go to Saudi Arabia? Or I will straight away I will decline. But if similar thing, if you want to go to Europe, anywhere in Europe, Belgium, I will say I am ready to come there. So this is not reflecting the current political situation. And Israel is currently an ally of India. And whatever, irrespective of the ideological differences, Israel already within maybe right from the beginning of the Christianity, they have become a very good kind of a civilization, which understood a lot of past mistakes and corrected course. So I have no enmity and with Israel, and especially nothing with zero with the current Israel leadership, current Israel nation. And I have absolutely no enmity with any Christian nation, Europe, anywhere in the Europe or in the America, because I tell the truth only. So based on the truth, I can say compared to Islamic nations, Christian nations are 10 times better. I can read it. But whatever ideological I have mentioned, which has happened in 2000 or 2500 years ago, they are true. And it is not only my ideology. This is what you read the SITARAM Goel's books, whatever chapters I mentioned, it is found in that. So I make a distinction between what happened in the past and what is in the present. And second thing is, I will look for the positive part of it. Every time, see, for example, I can just end my conversation saying that no, you question the Muslims who destroyed all the temples or the Arab nations, etc. Instead of that, what I am telling is, now look at the future and think about what positive you can do in the future. That's what I am only focusing on. I'm not focusing on the past, whatever has happened to our culture because of some wrong ideas. That let us forget about it. Move on to the future. That is what my primary point is about. Thanks.
Okay, Konrad Elst was first.
Yes, exactly. In 2014, I was at a conference, the India Ideas Conclave, organized by Ram Madhav, who I am told is listening right now. And so there was a big problem about my sayings about Islam and the presence of two top Muslim politicians in the audience from Jordan and from Turkey. And so I was wondering, you see, these people are neither Indian nor Hindu. What are they doing here? So I assume that quite a few of you have a similar reaction now, you see, telling me, why did you bring this, this Mark Joris here? So yes, you see, I perfectly understand that there is a certain gap of understanding. I can't, go into the whole debate. Of course, these are legitimate views, if not always true. But it's very illustrative of the flare-up that used to happen in debates between SITARAM, Goel himself, and political opponents. Like I remember a debate with the late Vinod Mehta, a top secularist journalist, where, he said, like, you have blood on your hands and stuff like that. It was all very animated. So this is something similar. All I want to say about the contents, leaving it open-ended, is that indeed, you see, the term Abrahamism has a number of wrong or undesirable connotations, but that is stuff for another conference. Indeed, that's a very important topic with ideological ramifications. So we'll devote time to that on another occasion. And finally, I want to say that I would insist with the moderator that in spite of all the hurry that we are in, that at least he gives the mic to Ranbir. He gave the shortest speech of all the speakers here, and yet a very important one with a very important message, namely that Hindus should take the initiative, that they should stop being on the defensive. And if he has something to say now, I'd really like to hear it.
Just to reiterate, I didn't speak a lot because, like I write, I try and speak as little as possible. I like to make it compact. So I understand, make one fall asleep like Indian politicians doing a speech on TV. He makes important points. However, again, taking the initiative, Hindu should. Well, when we look at it as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, that's not how it happened reality-wise. I've done some really good research, and of course, being in the West, having access to science library really helps. You mentioned Zoroastrianism, really important fact, because this Hungarian scholar Ignaz Goldziher, he found there's a lot of Zoroastrian influence on Islam. They recite the Quran from merit. It's taken from Zoroastrian belief in reciting the Avestan. Quran Surah mentions Harut and Marut, angels. Zoroastrian angels are Horvatat and Amratat. I hope I said that correctly. Surah mentions 1.6 mentions a bridge. Sirat al-Mustaqim, again in Zoroastrianism. Shias in Iran prayed facing sun or fire. And it's interesting that after the Islamic conquest of Iran, that's when you find books being written like by Ferdowsi to collate all the myths and folklore and stories of pre-Islamic heritage. Why did it happen afterwards and not before? 5 prayers have roots in the 5 Ghaz of Zoroastrianism. Beating the head in chest during Ashura has Zoroastrian precedence. Muhammad ascent to heaven as the Pahlavi text, Zoroastrian called the Arta Viraf, again ascent to heaven. Zoroastrian met Omar and the angels and saw paradise, and he saw hell. Now there are a lot of influence of Zoroastrianism on Islam, because Zoroastrianism began as dualism between Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, I believe, yeah? By the time you get the Sasanian Empire, you've got Zurvanism. It's a monotheistic form of Zoroastrianism. That had a huge influence on what became Islam. And I say what became Islam because Jijith, and it's no disrespect. I mean, obviously, you have to go by the information you have. And I believe this myself once. We think Islam came, Arabs thought, great, let's go and conquer. That isn't what happened. The Arabs conquered first. Islam was formed afterwards. It gave that conquest its credibility. Yeah? There is no proof of Muhammad existing. There's no proof that Jesus existed. I mean, Jesus, there's a lot of scholarship on that, but this came out of Robert Spencer's book. There are references to someone called Muhammad or the Blessed One, but there is no figure that corresponds to exactly Islamic tradition. The most important hadith, Sahih Bukhari, it's so exact. But then why do you have other texts like Abu Dawood, other hadiths contradicting each other? Surely if it's so detailed, you get the facts right. There is also evidence some of the Quran was lost. Aisha mentions a certain page eaten by a goat. Therefore, and if you look at the Quran, unlike the Bible, it is not in any coherent format. It doesn't flow. There are massive insertions that come out of nowhere. For example, you got Mary of Magdalene confused with Mary, mother of Jesus. These are basic facts. Now, I don't believe there's a conspiracy. In Gnostic Christian texts, Jesus wasn't crucified. Again, in Islam, there was influence on it. So the Arabs conquered. Early coins show crosses on there, on the Caliph Muawiyah. You shouldn't have that. You have contemporary sources by bishops that speak of Hagarenes, Maghreb, these things, Saracens. No reference to Islam, no reference to the Quran, no reference to anything that we recognize as being Islam. Now, surely if Quran, Muhammad were the reason for the conquest, we would find that. But no, it's conquest first, Islam afterwards. Tom Holland has done work and he got criticized for this massively. The Quran mentions Bakka. Bakka says the Mecca. Well, of course it's not, because in Bakka you grow olives. It's near Petra in modern Jordan. This is the mistake we make. Also, we also believe, oh, Jesus came along. Oh, all these gods are false. Oh yeah, let's just chuck this out. Well, of course that's not what happened. Same in the modern interpretation of Sikhism. Guru Nanak went to Hardwar. Don't chuck water at the sun. They thought, well, of course that's not what happened. The whole idea of Christianity came out of the Greek philosophy, Roman ideas of Mithras, Isis. It was going towards that in the first place. You got a single empire and a single emperor. Yeah, single focus. If you look at Aristotle's ideas of prime mover, didn't believe in gravity, again, that one force, that led to monotheism. Yeah, okay, because Greek philosophy was taken in by what became Christianity. When Galileo was persecuted by the church, he was going against the Aristotelian idea of a geocentric universe. Yeah, that the earth is the center, sun goes round it, not the other way around. So what I'm trying to say is, it isn't so clean cut. There's no evidence of Mecca being a place of pilgrimage, a center of trade. Patricia O'Connor has written on it. It was formed afterwards. It was invented. Yeah, now, it's not a big conspiracy. Think about it logically. You create an empire, you need a focus, you have to justify it. What better way than to make a single belief system to hold that empire together? That is why you find in the early stages of Islam, science, as we call it now, flourished. It later stagnates. And the reason it stagnates is Islam was forming. It was the result of it. Now, once you understand that, all this starts to make sense. Yeah? We have it in India now. The idea of Hinduism. One faith in India. It's a Western construct. It doesn't work like that. And don't feel weak because I'm attacking Hinduism. The fact is, if you attack that Western idea, then you're going back to your roots. If you keep that Western over Hinduism, then what is it based on? Vedas or Upanishads? Now, which book are you picking on? Because that's how the monotheistic mind works. It needs a single God, a single prophet, a single text. And that God does not even need to be a supernatural being. Communism has a God, it's called the theory. Secular ideas have it, it's called the theory. Modern secular ideas, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, all come from Christianity because they have that one focus. Humanity is the focus. Yeah? There's no proof for that at all. There'll be mass extinctions, there'll be more. But the fact is, scholarship is out there. Good books like Robert Spencer, Patricia Crone, which show Islam, it didn't form as we think it did. Again, Tom Holland, Timothy Freak, Christianity didn't form as we think it did. It wasn't the reason for the expansion, it was the result of that expansion. That's all I really got to say. I could go on, but don't want to bore you guys to death.
Yes.
Yeah,
So any questions on that?
Can I speak, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
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 I found his talk irreproachable. I think what he said was right. But since Mark Joris has raised certain points, let me point out that this is like, there are different stages in evolution. Like a virus develops mutations. So what he has shown that there were the original seeds of monotheism in the Avesta. And if you go further back, you'll find some seeds of that even in the Rig Veda. And then it developed in Judaism, then it developed into Christianity, then it developed into Islam. So each state, each development brings in new points. Obviously, if you are indicting those religions, you are not automatically indicting Avesta or the Rig Veda also, because certain things which we are indicting came later. So you see, in Avesta, you find this monotheism, a kind of dualistic monotheism, but even Christianity is like that because there is a God and a devil. But Zoroastrianism never preached hatred of the other gods and destruction of their temples and this thing. That thing started with Judaism, because in Judaism you find that they're told to go there and destroy all the temples, and that is described in great detail in the Old Testament. And I think in Harvesting Our Souls, Arun Shourie has given point after point, chapter after chapter, word and verse of this instructions of God, how to destroy the other gods and temples. So that was there. But the next mutation, Christianity. So, and you see, Zoroastrianism does not claim any descent from Abraham, whereas all the other three religions do. So in that sense, they are Abrahamic, while Zoroastrianism is not. And also they bring in this hatred for other gods. But Judaism was restricted only to Israel and only in the past. Today, no Jew believes that he has to destroy other temples, and nor does he believe that his jurisdiction is over the whole earth. Whereas Christianity taught that. They went and destroyed all the religions of Europe, of Europe, America, both the Americas and Australia and every other area. Even in Africa, they are doing it. Even they are doing it today in India. So that same thing is carried by Islam. And the distinct mutation which took place in Christianity was the universalism, that it applies to the whole world. Whereas in Judaism, it was restricted to Israel. Whereas Christianity and Islam are common in the sense that they want to impose the thing on the whole world. Now, the point that Mark Joris raised, that we are alienating possible allies, that is not correct, because you see in India, the evangelist Christian missionaries and the Islamists are united. They are not against each other. Only when one attacks the other, like for example, recently some Kerala Christians raised this thing about love jihad and all. Only when they are attacked for that small portion, they oppose each other. Otherwise, they are united. So they are not our allies in any sense. But Israelis are our allies because they are not expansionists. They don't want to convert Hindus. And so India, Hindus are friends with Jews. Also, European people who are now facing the dangers of Islam, they are our allies because they are not fundamentalist Christians. They are modern Europeans who are facing the onslaught of Islam. So I think by criticizing Abrahamism or criticizing Islam, I don't think we are alienating them as possible allies, because they are facing the same things we are facing. They are modern Europeans as we are modern Indian Hindus. So I don't think we are really alienating allies by that.
Actually, can I just say, on the whole about Zoroastrianism, you are correct, but under Sassanids, there was an intolerant form of Zoroastrianism that came into being, and it did persecute Jews and did persecute Christians. You could say it's political, but Zoroastrianism, it was an intolerant form of Zoroastrianism, and it had a huge influence on Islam because Iran had control of certain parts of Arabia, the south, even as far as Yathrib, and there's no doubt that it did become more intolerant as time went on. No, it did. I mean, I don't want to admit it, but that's the truth. And there's huge influence on Islam by Zoroastrianism.
The one point I want to talk to Ranbir is that you mentioned that the expansionism of the Arabs predated the development of Islam, but I am not seeing any of that in my studies. And anyway, today in this talk I represent SITARAM Goel. He clearly mentioned the Arabs started expansion after the Islamic Islamization.
Right.
So,
he was going. Sorry.
I don't accept that particular point of view. First of all, I am not seeing it in the SITARAM Goel's thesis. If it is separately available, then you can just provide me some information, and I will consider that as part of my entire thesis.
Sure.
That is one point, and I completely align with the Talagiri's mention about the evolution. So, and again, because Jorish has very strongly mentioned against consider me as a fundamentalist, polytheist. So I'm saying, exactly like because Talagiri has mentioned the correct words, which I could not articulate. It is a transformation, and the idea of believing in Ishta Devata, that is a particular Devata, is my favorite. That was there in Rig Veda also. Indra was that Devata. And after that, in the Zoroastrianism, definitely because of the battles, the political battles that ensued between the Bharatas and the Avastins, there was a kind of a hatred, not hatred, but there is a kind of a hatred in the Avestan text. So subsequently, it came out of in the Avestan text, but right in the Rig Veda, you can see that they were described as Anindra, Avrata, etc. That they don't worship Indra like that. So this is right from Rig Veda. So, and subsequently, the Avestan text exhibit in the Zoroastrian text exhibits the three elements like resurrection and afterlife, and I mentioned that the three elements that is precursor of Abrahamism. So exactly like Zoroastrianism is not Abrahamism. Abrahamism definitely start from this Judaism only. But some of the precursor features that was developed in the Zoroastrian text, resurrection, one of the important one among them, and I traced it slightly to the Mayadhanava and also to the Shukracharya's the resurrection concept. Like you continue your body life of physical body after death. Again, you using some medicine, you resurrect. So if I want to, if I as a person, if I am opposing everything related to monotheism, then I'll have to oppose everything. So I'm not oppose everything, including some elements of Rig Veda. I don't need to oppose. I'm not doing that. My opposition only in that whatever happened in some 2000 years ago, and rightly, Talagiri has rightly mentioned, current situations are entirely different. And today's Europeans, we can consider similar to allies of Hindus. So telling something happened in the past doesn't make them enemies anyway.
So look, I know what you're saying, but the Shkand Gurmani of Wizard, Sassanid text, does refute other beliefs. Temples of Devas were destroyed, by Zoroastrians. Okay, that's what happened. In terms of SITARAM Goel not mentioning pre-Islamic, no, I didn't say pre-Islamic expansion. Okay, the chronology isn't wrong. What I'm saying is the expansion happened. Islam was formed afterwards to justify it, because if you look at writers like John of Damascus, 8th century, there's no reference of these invaders, Arab invaders, mentioning Islam, Quran, and Muhammad. It's not mentioned. This happens afterwards. When did you get the first biography of Muhammad? Ibn Ishaq, a century afterwards. Why the gap? Surely if it was so detailed, you have it at the time. But you don't have any contemporary sources of Muhammad existing. You don't have any contemporary sources of Jesus. I mean, Josephus was a later insertion. But again, no contemporary sources. It's all written afterwards to justify it. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not refuting any of the destruction that took place from the wars. What I'm saying is the reasons behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, to wind up this indeed very important discussion, let me simply say that while Goel has done a lot of historical work about what Islam did in India, about the origins of Islam, he is simply following the established Islamic history, which makes sense because that's what counts for the Muslims, that's what determines their behavior. Also, at that time, the things that you explain that are, that were developed by Christoph Luxemburg, by Patricia Krohn, now by what's his name again?
Spencer, Tom Holland.
Spencer, yes. That's pretty recent. So, there was only a very distant sense of that in Goel's time. Now this knowledge is also being brought into India, like Abbas Malhadiyar has done that. So that's very important, and I think in the future we will devote more attention to this real history of Arabia in the 7th century. But the Islamic version is still important simply because it's the one that is believed by Muslims themselves and determines their behavior. But so I propose, in the interest of the next speaker, that we wind this up here, and we promise each other that we will take up this very important discussion on some future occasion.